8 stranded in Japan return home. Isolation center for Central Province. While East New Britain's isolation site nears completion.
This is National EMTV News with Helen Sayer.
Good evening and thanks for joining us for Thursday's news. 8 Papua New Guineans stranded in Japan have arrived back in the country. The Air New Guinea flight landed at 4:25 this morning at Jackson's International Airport, and the 8 were immediately quarantined at the designated hotels for the next 14 days. Foreign Affairs Minister Patrick Puraj also revealed that the government is yet to repatriate the remaining 781 stranded citizens in 25 countries. On board an Air Niugini flight that touched down in the early hours of the morning at Jackson's International Airport were 8 citizens who were stranded in Japan when the COVID-19 pandemic caused countries to shut down their borders. Also on the flight were 2 Japanese nationals who are residents in the country.
Today is a very significant moment for our country.
Foreign Affairs Minister Patrick Pruitt told the media that the Japanese government and Dai Nippon Construction Company chartered the flight that repatriated 130 Japanese nationals to Japan and on its return leg brought our citizens back.
The next stage of our efforts to contain and mitigate this particular virus is now for us to bring in our stranded citizens who are abroad. And today, this morning, we are witnessing 8 of our citizens arriving from Japan.
Minister Pruitt says the government is working closely with the country's diplomatic missions and consular posts overseas to secure the numbers of citizens abroad, including their personal details. And these are citizens who made contact with the Foreign Affairs team seeking assistance to be evacuated.
189, and we are commencing our efforts to bring them into our country. And the first movement, first evacuation is taking place this morning. There are many more who are on studies. Those numbers we have not collated, but we have put out a general notice. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
All 10 passengers who arrived this morning have been taken to the respective hotels for quarantine for the next 14 days.
The main agenda for our government is to make sure that we start to see some balancing act going forward in terms of how we manage our economy and manage the pandemic.
Lilian Sopera-Kinea, National EMTV News. SOE controller David Manning says no new cases have been detected in Papua New Guinea, with an anticipated 947 test results pending from laboratories in Brisbane, Australia. As far as security operations are concerned, the controller stated that the police, defence force and correctional services are continuing to support the health response of COVID-19, being instrumental in stopping the spread. An expected spike in COVID-19 related cases is expected for the month of May.
And it was important that we met with the assistant commissioners or division commanders to ensure that we work towards, as a constabulary, work towards some alignment between the provincial efforts and the efforts of implementing the national strategy managed here in the NOC. I've also signed off on the instruments of authorised officers. This gives effect to authorised persons in the provinces. It gives them some guidance as to what they can or can't do, and allow them to implement or complement what's happening here in the NOC throughout the provinces.
The SOE commander also acknowledging the assistance of the Australian government for their efforts throughout PNG's state of emergency and COVID-19 fight.
Through DFAT, as of this morning, we received 6 metric tons of much needed PPEs, of which it is planned to have them all distributed throughout the country and to our frontliners at the border.
Of the 8 confirmed cases and with 1 recovery so far, Manning says the remaining 7 who have been retested have had their results as negative, with a final retesting phase being conducted.
We are now retesting again just to make sure that status does remain. So as we've been briefed, those that were initially tested positive have health-wise have recovered from COVID-19.
The relaxation of the current state of emergency orders in the National Capital District and East New Britain will be guided by the situation on the ground and the potential for risks that may arise. Provincial administrators as well as police commanders on the ground have been consulted throughout the process. Manning says he understands the frustrations that citizens are facing at the moment, but believes acting prudent will save lives.
So with NCD, as we've made known in the last couple of days, is that the tertiary institutions have been opened up. The primary and secondary institutions will open up on the 4th, which is next week Monday. So we're looking at ways of how we can facilitate that. But if there are any restrictions to be relaxed, it has to be under control. The danger is that, and the risk that we face is if we completely relax them, we'll undo what we currently have accomplished thus far. But you will see, and at this point, the uplifting of the curfew is one thing that would be looking at, and that again will be confirmed tomorrow. The relaxing of alcohol sales restrictions, and as you asked about the PMVs, yes, to cater for movements, there'll be a significant number of people moving around come Monday with our school children returning back to school. And on that note, let me remind all parents and guardians that it is still optional, and it is very much optional to allow your children to go back, or those under your care to go back to and attend classes primary to secondary.
With primary and secondary schools to commence next week, public motor vehicles have been told to adhere to SOE orders and laws outlined by the transport sector. These include social distancing, bus cleanliness and fare increase. Road Traffic Authority Chief Executive Officer Nelson Tarama says all these are part of the new normal advocation.
With the state and NOC 19 putting emphasis for the new normal, agencies in the transport sector will be playing a critical role in the movement of people. The RTA Chief Executive says PMVs have been alerted of the necessary SOE orders for the transport sector. This also includes a rise in bus fare.
The fare has been increased to 1 kina 50 toya. That is been emphasized during the training. So we also touched about the dressing and the conduct of the PMVs and the drivers and the crews, and also the cleanliness of the PMV buses and taxis.
PMVs in the nation's capital have comments serving the public. During an awareness workshop recently, PMV owners were told to maintain bus cleanliness. Terama says this is not to react to the COVID-19 threat, but a change for the PMV service providers in urban areas.
I would like to appeal to general public to comply, and if it is 15%, it must be 15 passengers, and they must follow this, because PMV bus is going to complete routes from point A to point B. So their job is to comply and cooperate with the crews and the drivers so that social distancing must be maintained at all times, and the cleanliness, both hand washing and everything will be done on the public transport. So everybody needs to cooperate, and then we need to work together.
Meanwhile, under the state of emergency, special passes have been given to buses and taxi operators. This also involves rechecking of license and registration. The RTA CEO urged operators to ensure traffic laws and SOE orders are followed.
So those who have not been issued with a vehicle pass, that means that you need to come to RTA office, and we will see how we can assist you. So enforcement unit will be very strict in making sure that those public transport which will be operating will be issued with a pass, and making sure that they've gone through the training.
Jack Lopava Jr., National MTV News.
An isolation centre will be established in Kwikila Rigo district to cater for COVID-19 persons of interest in the central province. Yesterday, Rigo MP Lekwa Gure visited Kwikila District Hospital to discuss a way forward and see how the centre will be established. The MP said the Rigo District Development Authority is committed to support this isolation centre in the district.
Yesterday, Rigo MP Lekwa Gure, together with members of the Central Provincial Health Authority, went on a tour of the Kwikila Health Facility. On that tour, a site to set up the isolation tents was identified, and there are also other issues that need to be addressed.
There are issues of trying to protect our staff, trying to look after the patients who come in, or people who come in for investigation, or who after trials we say they are people of interest. And then what do we do next?
2 isolation tents have been made available by UNICEF and will be set up at Kwikila District Hospital. However, the district hospital is also faced with many challenges. Central Provincial Health Authority Acting CEO Dr. James Amini says water and electricity is their main challenge, and the health facility needs rehabilitation.
We'll need X-ray and housing for the gene expert, and proper operating theatre. And probably relocate the labor ward and make a good. This has to be a hospital. This is down the line. This has to be a hospital.
The isolation center will only cater for mild cases, and testing will be done at the Rita Flynn facility in NCD. Dr. Amini said any serious cases or persons of interest will be transported by St. John ambulance to the Rita Flynn facility.
We will, in isolation area, the tent, we will look after only mild cases while they're waiting. Mild cases and moderate cases, but anything higher than that has to be transported to Rita Flynn.
In the past few weeks, there have been awareness programs in parts of Rigo District and Central Province. Rigo MP Lekwa Gure says their key message was about eating healthy diet and stigmatization.
In the next few weeks, what we intend to do is re-emphasize those key messages, but at the same time, just to add 2 important messages. One of them being, how the people can, like a little bit of dietary advice as to how they can boost their immune systems. But at the same time, talk about the issue of stigmatization, because that is becoming an issue.
The members said there are plans for more isolation centers in Kupiano in Abau district and Berena in the Kairuku-Hiri district.
Rigo DDA is ready to assist with whatever is required to be done, whether it's funding or other even technical expertise in terms of design or what else that needs to be done. We stand by ready to assist the medical people with what needs to be done.
Rayon Lakingu, National MTV News.
You're watching National MTV News. We'll be back with more after these messages. Stay with us. Welcome back. Work on the isolation centre in East New Britain province is near completion. The abandoned hunters village at the Callabon Sports Oval has been converted to one of the 2 isolation facilities for the province. The 36-room accommodation facility will provide additional support to the main treatment and quarantine facility at Butterwin, which is expected to be opened on Friday. Although the 21 days lockdown has ended, the Provincial State of Emergency Controller Wilson Matava says there are contingency plans in place to isolate individuals or individual households rather than the whole community they come from. East New Britain has recorded a total of 2 positive COVID-19 cases within Kokopo district, but so far the SOE controller says there isn't any evidence of community transmission. The 21 days lockdown in East New Britain province has been uplifted this week. This includes section of the Kinabot Stage 2 that has been under lockdown for 2 weeks following the second positive COVID-19 case that originated from the area. The National SOE Controller David Manning, meanwhile, has issued new orders for the province. These include the operation of only selected businesses, hotels, shops, markets, restaurants, sea and airports. Meanwhile, Commissioner Manning has maintained that all people are to remain at home between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. A further restriction has also been placed on religious and customary gatherings as they breach social distancing requirements. Bulolo District Administrator Tai Gwambalek says more personal protective equipment is needed for COVID-19 operations in the district. He said the only frontliners with PPEs at the moment are doctors and nurses. Other frontliners, such as the police and defense personnel, are operating without protective equipment. Contact tracing is ongoing for local transmission in the district following the 8th positive case in Goroka. The case was in Bulolo before traveling up to Goroka. Samples have been taken and sent up to Goroka for testing. Mr. Gwambalek raised concerns on the Lutheran Christian radio last night, saying frontliners are at risk given the current situation and need to be protected. The DA said he will stop frontliners from working if there is a confirmed positive COVID-19 case in the district. A monitoring and surveillance base will be set up in the Labuta LLG, Nawai District, Morbe Province to monitor the disposal of deep-sea tailings by the Wafi Golpu mine. The Conservation Environment Protection Authority Deputy Managing Director Dili Mugua said this is to ensure that the system used does not raise environmental concerns. The SEPA and the Minister for Environment, Conservation and Climate Change, Wera Mori.
The Conservation Environment Protection Authority traveled to the Labuta LLG Nawab district in the Morbe province to conduct an awareness on the Ridge to Reef project. They were led by the Minister for Environment, Conservation and Climate Change, Wera Mori. Mori said the Ridge to Reef project would enable landowners to monitor the impacts that the deep-sea tailings would have on the environment.
Through this project, you make a voice long Wafi Golpu project. One you make a monitoring system long here and you make a talk to the Morbe government or some time maybe like a come up and maybe like a pick him up long into the project program long maybe at least maybe I can bring him attention long Wafi Golpu and maybe I can talk to the Morbe government too.
Weduru village in Labuta is one of many other villages along this coastline. About 200 meters out in the Huon Gulf is where the Wafi Golpu mine has planned to dispose deep-sea tailings when it starts operating. Mori said the Ridge to Reef project will involve both the company and locals in the areas impacted by the tailings in monitoring the impacts.
So we will put into the program so that we will start looking and monitoring. We will make sure that when something go down into the salt water, I'm not going to come back and up. Now I'm not going to affect the salt water, I'm not going to control the fish,
A monitoring and surveillance base will be set up in Wediru.
Just to ensure that the deep-sea tailing system that the company will use to dispose the tailings into the canyon in the deep sea does not raise any environmental concerns.
Lucy Kopana, National EMTV News.
The Gobe landowners of Southern Highlands Province have demanded the Department of Petroleum to pay their outstanding royalty payments here and not go back to the province. Today they gathered at the Department of Petroleum and Energy head office and made their concerns known. They claim they have waited for over a month in the city and they are tired of waiting.
This afternoon, angry landowners from Gobe gathered in numbers to raise concerns over their royalty payments. They claim they have waited for these payments for many years and they are fed up of waiting. They say they want the payments to be made here and not in Gobe.
So this land yet looking for some there is unlawfully holding on to our check. Minister like Karimikolo Plus. But this payment, 11 ILGs have already been paid. And this is 14 left over, all balance line. So there is no need for taking it home because you have paid 11 ILGs already in here.
According to the landowners, there are over 21 ILGs in Gobe area. They claim that in 2002, their royalties were paid. However, due to miscalculations, they were underpaid and they have been waiting for those overdue payments since 2002. They claimed few ILGs have been paid in 2016, but over 10 ILGs are yet to receive their payments.
People Gobe, people benefit the one basket. But this line is split into payment 7 black simpinis. Now me 14 black me come in up now. We went as far as DP clearance, me go finance, me go clearance law office law, Solicitor General. Solicitor General let me clearance is a payment finish. Law payment must proceed.
The landowners further claim that they have done everything they can to have their payments ready. They say payments were ready since early this month, but they have waited for over 30 days to receive their payments, and they are concerned about this delay.
Money I'm claiming bro me braya. Me bread me claim him na me kisim kam. Na me claim na me claim him go IOG. Me go want nominate the company so me claim go IOG now. Me the money na make him here. Now, for this come inside. Whose interest?
The landowners are now planning to take legal actions against the people responsible. They say a letter of complaint has been drafted and they will be going to the police soon.
And our checks to be paid in here today or tomorrow. If not, I said this paper here, this is our complaint letter. We will now get everybody to sign it. We will lodge it to CID and they will help us to get these guys over there and tell us why they're holding our checks.
Rayon Lakingu National, EMTV News.
And now looking at the NAS Fund market report, the Kina opened unchanged at $0.291 in the interbank market this morning. At Bank South Pacific, your Kina was buying $0.2835 $0.4296 Australian dollars, $0.253 euro and 29.57 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices at New York close, gold is trading higher, coffee closed lower, cocoa closed higher and copra closed higher. Palm oil closed lower, crude oil is trading higher and copper closed higher. And on the stock market, the Dow Jones closed 532.31 points higher. The ASX 200 is trading at 219.33 points lower, and the All Ordinaries is trading at 216.7 points higher. And National EMTV News continues with more stories home and abroad when we come back. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. There are concerns over dead bodies left at the Kiunga General Hospital morgue in Western Province. The hospital is urging families to claim their deceased relatives whose bodies have been in the morgue for over 2 months.
The morgue can only hold up to 14 bodies. There are bodies in the mortuary that have been kept for more than 2 months, while others have been added recently and are waiting to be removed for burial. Most of the bodies in the morgue are those of young children below the ages of 10, while only a few elderly citizens. According to the undertaker, families have been notified of their deceased relatives and for them to come forward and remove the bodies, but no action has been done to date. Local member James Donald is aware of the situation at Kiunga General Hospital and is looking at ways to assist. The people are also well aware of messages on COVID-19 such as social distancing, hand washing and PPEs. Hence, mass gatherings are not allowed to stop the possible spread of the coronavirus. 3 confirmed cases of COVID-19 have been reported in Western Province, while testings for COVID-19 is still ongoing in border villages in all 3 districts. Currently, to date, there are no new confirmed cases of COVID-19. Meanwhile, on the construction of a new facility to cater for COVID-19 cases is in full swing. It will house 20 patients. When completed, it will be installing 2 PCR labs and will see the procurement of 10 to 20,000 testing kits for COVID-19. Similar facilities will also be replicated and be built in Daru and Balimo. The testing and isolation facility that's currently being built is costing the district $890,000, where $500,000 has been secured to get the construction started and the remaining to be cleared soon while the construction of the facility is completed. As part of the COVID-19 exercise in the province, this facility is the first to be built in North Fly District. Godwin Eki, National EMTV News, Kiunga.
Burena Station in the Central Province will now light up during the night and day. This follows the commissioning of a new genset by Karukuhiri MP Peter Isoaimo recently. The genset cost 250,000 kina and was purchased through a DDA decision.
Earlier this week, local MP Peter Isoaimo and members of the district administration travelled to Burena to commission a very special asset for the Kairuku district. A 200 kilowatt generator set that has the capacity of providing essential electricity to the Burena station and its surrounding communities.
And so, with many mechanical problems, the administration did submit to our Kairuku DDA for purchase of a new one. Hence, a sum of 250,000 was approved and used to purchase this new genset, which we will commission today to supply power to the station.
Following the commissioning of the genset, the local MP visited a section of the Burena Village Road and Oreke Trunk Roads. The road was upgraded with an allocation of 400,000 kina. Local contractor Roach Trading is engaged and hopes to complete the Oreke Road. The local MP says with scarce funding, the DDA wants road conditions to improve so people access markets and other services.
We want to spend for money's value and for benefit of our people in terms of market accessibility to get their produce to markets. So it brings economic returns to the people of the district, especially the Kairuku LLG people here.
Meanwhile, MP Isoaimo says the DDA is always spreading funding because of a large landmass and high population. He says his concern is for Land Boundary Commission to split the district.
I really don't understand why my predecessors never had the drive and willpower and keenness in pushing for the split, because it's been a problem ever since. Of course, I'm advocating now, I'm feeling the pinch of it, you know, and I want to clean this mess up. It doesn't matter who wins the next elections, so long as we clear a pathway for benefit of our people.
Kairukuhiri district has a population of about 175,000. Jagla Pava Jr., National EMTV News.
7 brand new lawnmowers worth 15,000 kina were presented to the PNG Defence Force at Tarama Barracks yesterday by local MP Justin Tichenko. Each will be allocated to every company to maintain their lawns. The presentation was part of the MP's District Services Improvement Programme Fund to support schools, hospitals and community development projects in the area.
With soldiers being deployed throughout PNG because of COVID-19 and other rising issues, their lawns needed to be maintained when they return home. This was why member for Moresby South, Justin Tichanko, bought these brand new lawnmowers to be used for its purposes.
Donation of lawnmowers and grass cutting equipment to keep you occupied and to cut all the grass and keep the grass down in the barracks.
The MP thanked the soldiers for their continued support in protecting PNG borders and assisting the police during the pandemic. Tichanko also said that under his DSIP fund, with support of the NCD governor and in partnership with the Minister for Defense, they will try to maintain and upgrade the clinic and primary and elementary schools at the barracks.
As the Moresby South electorate covers the Turama barracks, it's also important for me to assist the barracks in maintaining and upgrading and looking after their facilities, working with the Defence Force, working with the CO of Turama Barracks, as well as making sure your dependents, your family members also are looked after through education and other programs that we do through Moresby South.
Turama Barracks Commanding Officer Major Mark Kellerton, upon receiving the machines, thanked the MP for his donations. Michelle Stephen, National EMTV News.
And turning overseas, an antiviral drug developed to fight Ebola is being hailed as a potential weapon against COVID-19. The United States is claiming that trials revealed it has helped patients recover faster by blocking coronavirus. That's triggered a presidential push for a fast-track approval, but others are urging caution.
It's by no means a cure, but these vials contain what could become the first approved treatment for COVID-19. Remdesivir, made in California by Gilead Sciences, is an experimental drug. It failed as a fix for Ebola, but has shown real promise in the fight against COVID in a US government trial.
The data shows that remdesivir has a clear-cut, significant positive effect in diminishing the time to recovery.
That recovery time cut from 15 to 11 days. Not exactly a silver bullet, but Dr. Fauci says it shows effective treatment is possible.
What it is proven is that a drug can block this virus.
It works by stopping the virus from multiplying inside the body.
Then the virus load goes down and the body's normal healing systems can take over and help the healing process.
Remdesivir was tested on more than 1,000 people hospitalized with COVID, including this 55-year-old man.
I woke up in the morning and I could breathe and it still hurt. But, it had dropped off quite a bit. So, it was literally 2 days later when all of a sudden I went, wow, I'm feeling better.
The good news embraced by America's president.
We would like to see very quick approvals, especially with things that work.
And in Japan and several other countries, clinical trials are underway. Here it's sparked interest.
Watching very closely, and this is an area of expertise of Dr. Fauci, so I was particularly interested in his interpretation of the data.
The data follows a separate trial in Wuhan, which found remdesivir to be ineffective. But the study was incomplete, as there weren't enough sick patients to effectively test the drug. Global experts urging caution and more testing of this new hope.
Trukai Sports is next. Don't go away. Jeremy Moggy is at the sports desk.
Thank you, Helen. The effects of COVID-19 and how one sporting athlete is given back to the community, and the latest in the NRL. I'll be back with the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. South Africa's Rugby World Cup winning captain knows what it's like to grow up poor. Siya Kolisi now wants to give back. He is using his foundation to help those affected by the coronavirus pandemic. He spoke to CNN.
first project. Obviously, it's my home. It really means a lot, and I've seen the people struggling. My friends are giving me feedback. So we've got a special permit. We're going to come feed, make sure this is sorted out. For me, it's personal because I know there's nothing worse than hunger. There's nothing worse than listening to your stomach before you go to bed and you just hear it grumbling and you have nothing to eat. You've got no other choice.
How fearful are you both of the damage that this COVID-19 could cause in South Africa?
It could be huge. That's what gets me going and keeps me motivated to work as hard as I can to try and help the frontline workers.
It's so important for him, and I know this, because he wants to make sure that he sees that food going into the right people's hands.
It feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it, that we were in Japan now celebrating your historic Rugby World Cup win. How often have you watched your highlights from that Rugby World Cup final?
I made the whole family sit down like a couple of weeks ago when the lockdown kind of started, and we watched it all over again and got all the goosebumps all over.
Thank you so much for everything. When I was playing, like you don't see the people and everything that's going on because you're just in the zone. I mean, our coach's speech before the game, it hit home. I remember everything he said, which at that time was just exactly what we needed, you know. Spoke about all the struggles and things that you've experienced in your life and how you can use that on the day so you can change the future of the other people coming behind you. I will never forget that feeling.
When all of this is over, how good will it feel to be back with them and for the world to have sport again?
Yeah, that's going to be amazing. We're only going to fight this thing together, and we need to stand united together as humanity. And yeah, the sooner we realize that, the better it will be. The sooner we help one another, the better it's going to be.
To the NRL, another day, another case of thrust and counter-thrust in the NRL's attempt to restart rugby league. Just this afternoon, the players threatened to delay a return to training with officers forced into crisis meetings.
This is how the NRL's Players Association meet under normal circumstances. Last night they met online, with Warriors players leading a call to halt preparations until the NRL provides clarity.
It's been clear from the outset, from where our club sat, that we needed to know a number of, and have clarity around a number of matters, inclusive of remuneration of players, before we left the country.
Last night, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck and others reaffirmed no Warriors fly until their families are also taken care of. A necessary tactic following 3 weeks of half-truths. First from the now sacked NRL CEO Todd Greenberg, and then Chairman Peter V'landys, who told the Warriors they could enter Australia.
That still hasn't been determined. The Commonwealth has made no decision about the access by the Warriors into Australia. That hasn't happened.
One News can confirm the NRL reacted to news of a potential boycott by all clubs, holding emergency talks today. Players have been told to expect around 80% of their annual salary, but nothing is in writing.
Whilst we've received some information, the players are working with the RLPA across the game to determine their pay rates.
But players are worried about public perception as they fight for lucrative salaries when thousands are losing jobs.
For me, you just got to, take a deep breath and understand, if you're in that situation, what would you be expecting?
You'd probably expect more than just 3 weeks of toing and froing from those at the top.
Still to come in Trukai Sports, a preview of NBA legend Michael Jordan's documentary. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. In basketball, a documentary on NBA legend Michael Jordan is out on Netflix. It's called The Last Dance. It tracks the basketball star's final season.
My name is Michael Jordan. I played with the Bulls from 84 to 98.
It's very rare for people to be near unanimous in their positivity, especially online. People like to fight with each other and people like to be contrary. And I think it's probably a sign of the times that we're currently all going through as a planet. That people are a little bit less cynical and they want to just watch something that makes them escape. And it's also the kind of a doc that I think that people who did live through it can share with younger people in their family and younger friends.
The footage that was available to you, I'm curious about this. How did it stay secret and how was it not explored in a documentary before now? I can't believe that someone didn't try and do something with it earlier.
I bet there were attempts to do something with it, but when you have a guy like Michael Jordan and it's contingent upon his participation, that tends to carry a lot of weight. So when Adam Silver, who is the commissioner of the league right now, back then in 97, 98, he was the president of NBA Entertainment. And when he approached Michael with this idea to embed cameras, he promised him that this would never see the light of day without Michael's participation and his authorization. So it took the better part of 20 years for Michael to finally say, okay, let's bring these upstairs from the basement and let's put it together and let people see it in documentary form.
Do you think there's any truth to the suggestion that Michael Jordan is trying to maintain his legacy as the greatest of all time?
I don't, because I think that would come from a place of insecurity, and Michael is the least insecure person I've ever come across in my life.
You lived through the Jordan era, so you must have enjoyed this.
It's incredible. It's they barely could get the sentence out of their mouth when they called me for dinner and asked me if I'd be interested in doing a project like this, because I didn't even know this footage existed. You're right. I was at the Garden April 20th, 1986 with my dad. Saw him make history that day. I was enthralled with him then, and I'm enthralled with him now for different reasons, because Michael Jordan, the superstar, is who I was obsessed with back then, and now Michael Jordan, the human being, is whose story I get to tell to the world now. So I'm incredibly lucky.
That ends True Kai Sports. The weather forecast for the next 24 hours when we come back.
True Kai Sports. True Kai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Partly cloudy, though mostly fine in Port Moresby. Partly cloudy with a few showers in Daru. Mostly fine weather in Kerema, Alotau and Popondita. In the Momase region, fine with a few showers in Leh. Mostly fine weather in Wau. Cloudy, although fine in Medang. Mostly fine weather in Wewak and Vanimore. In the New Guinea Islands region, cloudy with a few showers right across the region in Lorengau, Kavieng, Kokopo, Rabaul, Kimbe and Buka. And in the Highlands region, mostly fine then morning fog in Mount Hagen. Cloudy with rain showers, then scattered morning fog in Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabag.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
And that's the way it is this Thursday, 30th of April 2020. On behalf of the news team, pleasant viewing. Good night.